see. I came to PayPal via the acquisition of Ware. So I was the chief innovation officer at Ware. We got acquired by PayPal. When was that? Like
Probably back in April?
Feels like years ago.
Yeah.
No, it was like May of this year.
Yeah.
And and then I recently sort of came here, relocated with my family about a month ago. We're in Shallow Alto.
Yeah, nice.
Right now, temporary corporate housing, what I call purgatory. My job title's changed, and sort of my focus has changed as well, which we can talk a bit more about.
Sure, yeah. And you do have one of the coolest titles of anyone I know.
Oh, thank you.
Chief Scientist, that's great.
Yeah.
The only one that beats that is Seth Pribich at Scavenger. His title is Chief Ninja.
Chief Ninja, yeah. So, I think he'll kick my ass.
Right, exactly, yeah. And then you can pay him for it. So let's talk about PayPal, and I guess start off kind of topical with recent news. I mean, I think that there's a lot of growth that you guys are seeing on the mobile device in terms of mobile payment volume.
Yeah.
Most recently, you reported some pretty good figures over kind of the beginning of the shopping season, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, some pretty big kind of percentage jumps from what you saw the year earlier, just kind of a year-over-year comparison. And then also, I think you're on track. This number may not be totally up to date. If so, please correct me. $3 billion mobile payment volume, on track for this year, which we're almost through, compared to $750 million last year. So the question, I guess, is, and you can add to these figures, and also, to what do you attribute this growth? In addition to kind of just the organic growth in smartphone penetration and mobile engagement, what are you guys doing to kind of boost these levels?
There's a lot going on, right? And certainly there's been a lot of focus on mobile devices, from Ware acquisition to Zong to, everyone actually, they're really focusing on the mobile side.
Sure.
So, let's see, Cyber Monday and Black Friday.
Black Friday.
Sorry, I was not born here, so I'm not used to those terms here.
I think Cyber Monday was probably just invented, recently.
I think so. Yeah. But like 6 times more in terms of volume since compared to last year. About 4 times in general, all around, of more users than last year.
Yeah.
There was a big spike for, I think it's couch commerce, somebody called it. And so it's like there's a big spike between 6 and 7 p.m. Where people were actually using a lot of devices to buy.
Yep.
So there's just like, big spike. So I guess after, right before you go into coma, you buy yourself something. I don't know.
Now, you mentioned also kind of that growth is partly a result of, all the things eBay's doing. You mentioned Zong. You mentioned, there are more kind of touch points into this kind of, this what we keep calling a closed loop, bringing more users into the funnel, which ends with a transaction. So, that's probably part of it too, part of this growth. And that also brings us to the next point. And I alluded to this earlier, some of the acquisitions that eBay has made that really just kind of triangulates an interesting strategy. So they bought Ware, your previous company.
Yes.
That brings users into the funnel through a network of mobile ads. When you're in a retail context, Milo will tell you where there are nearby items and inventory and how many are on the shelf. Red Laser was another acquisition when you're at the point of sale to be able to find out more about products, and then through Milo find out where they are, or purchase and get led through more of an m-commerce type of format, or even into the eBay bid marketplace. And then, of course, at the end of that funnel, you have PayPal. And at the Innovate conference that we both spoke at, John Donahoe said that you have retail and then you have e-commerce, and e-commerce is a slice of that. But the goal is for us to look at this as this overall $8 trillion pie that's simply just known as commerce. It's just the same. So, what is your philosophy on that and PayPal and kind of, connecting the online and offline world in a way that it's kind of just more holistic?
So, I think that's exactly right in the sense that, people are trying to divide, mobile commerce or this commerce or that commerce. If you look at it, it's really should be just commerce experience, not just for the consumers, but also for the merchants, right? So it's, if you're selling stuff online or, on a retail store or, back of your trunk, it doesn't really matter. You should be able to make that transaction in a very seamless way. So, so really actually something really cool happened I don't even know if I'm talking, I'll say it. it feels like, I'll talk in generally.
No one's listening.
There's been, it feels like, and I hear it from everyone in eBay and PayPal, is that our focus has been just really laser focused right now. Before, there were lots of different things happening here and there, but now I think, lots of leaders in the company are saying, okay, let's make sure we're focused on our vision, make sure we're doing the right things for our customers, both consumer buyers and sellers, and just we're going to be laser focused on what the next step should be. And really, it's all about commerce. I think the vision for, more specifically for PayPal, really has been, anytime, anywhere, any way. It's like saying, sky is blue, grass is green. But even beyond that, it's really more about commerce, trying to make that into a seamless, multi-channel, wherever you want to go, however you want to pay, we want to make that happen. And what's really interesting about all these sort of acquisitions is that, things are kind of coming together. I mean, it takes time as, companies get integrated and all that. But then with that vision, I think everyone's fairly well aligned in terms of what we should be doing, where we should be going in terms of the commerce.
Now let's talk about that concept of being everywhere where other people are accessing commerce and payments. Just to give the audience a bit of a background, where is PayPal now present in terms of mobile, of course online. That's, I think everyone's familiar with what can be done there. But what kind of formats are we talking about? I know you're doing a lot to basically be wherever you can. Integrations such as Android, and then with Bump, people can bump to pay. What are all the places where you're now present that people can use PayPal while mobile? Just kind of an outline before we go on. Where we're going.
Right. So much of this is also being built out, and again, it's all about trying to be multi-channel and trying to be everywhere and however anyone want to pay. So, NFC. We don't know if it's here or not. We don't know when it's going to come, but we're ready. And you can tap to pay. You can also swipe to pay. PayPal card. There's also I think we call it empty hands, where you can punch in your phone number and some security code, and you can still pay that way. Also, you can scan. So I don't know, with Red Laser, you can go in and scan the items, pass a line, and just show something that you paid, and you can just walk out. And there's actually, has everyone downloaded an app called Red Laser? Show of hands.
I have it.
All right. Oh, cool. It's actually very, very cool. And the latest one, actually, what happens is there's a so let's say you go to your friend's house and you see a really cool toy for the kids, and like, ooh, I want to get this for my kids. So if you find the barcode, you scan it, and what it'll do is it'll find you all the local places where you can get it from. So that's Red Laser and Milo. And also there was a Toys R Us integration, so you can actually buy it right there with Toys R Us, pay for it, and go there and pick it up.
So you don't have to go to the store and get in a fight.
No, you don't. Or like the Elmo stuff. Yeah, you don't have to do that.
Nice.
I think that was the specific use case we tried to, like, no more Elmo fighting. That was the thing that we're trying to avoid.
Now, something that was announced recently along these lines of different places to make it easier for people to use PayPal on mobile. PayPal Access. I think it's called Access, correct?
Yes.
Let's talk about that, because I think the very interesting thing about this is it can do for payments what Facebook Connect did for social authentication. In terms of, it already has your information. It's less clicks. They already have your shipping address, all that great stuff. And I think that particularly applies, it's not just mobile, but it applies to mobile because it's a medium where you don't want to do all that finger tapping. So, along these lines of just making it easier, different places where people can access PayPal, tell us the vision for it's called Access, correct?
Yeah, it's called PayPal Access, and it's very much Facebook Connect-like, but for payments. So, you go online somewhere or in a mobile device, it'll just make everything easy for you to just go and pay, right? So the thing about, it's still at the early stages, and, X.commerce guys are really leading the front there. And it's like fantastic idea and implementation. Now we're trying to really get traction there. Really cool stuff. I don't know. You can think about all these other cool scenarios you can do with actual PayPal Access, and log in once and go anywhere you want and just pay with a click, really.
Now, let's talk about some of the other standards in mobile payments, because it's early for mobile payments, and there are standards developing. There's a lot of experimentation, feeling out what users are willing to do, and it's just very early days. So, you mentioned NFC. NFC is kind of, there's a chicken and egg challenge that's there. Google's making a lot of investment to kind of goose both the chicken and the egg side of that equation. You have Square. Square, I think, just announced they have 8 million, merchants in the U.S. using it. Or no, I'm sorry, 1 million, because there are 8 million total merchants that accept credit cards currently. So, in terms of just PayPal's positioning, it has a lot of brand equity, and also just the nuts and bolts of how things are paid for. How do you feel that you compare with some of these other standards, and you have kind of a value proposition that compares?
Again, I mean, it's multi-channel.
Okay.
And NFC or, actually, all those examples are fantastic. I mean, Google Wallet, I think it's a great product.
Right.
Square, it's like very, very innovative. There's a lot we can learn from them. The thing about us is, like, philosophically, you should be able to pay however you want, right? It's not just about Starbucks or not about just Apple stores, but what we want to do is enable all our merchants to be able to have these functionality and features to be able to pay that way. So, and there's gazillions of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a specific number, gazillions. And all these people have different ways, from large merchants, SMBs, sole proprietors. I mean, guys selling stuff off their trunks. I mean, they all need a different way to pay that. So, our vision is to enable that anytime, anywhere, anyway. And really, in order to do that, there are lots of different technologies you have to come up with.
Right.
And that's what we're betting on, is that really it's not about the front end. It's not about the square peg that you put in and makes the user experience great. I mean, that's not only about that, but having security in the back. 13 years of just experience. We have risk and fraud detection that's just one of the best in class.
Now, what about your installed base? I think that also gives you a leg up in terms of merchants that already accept PayPal.
Yes.
How does that look, in terms of your numbers?
So, let's see, 100 million users, 9 million merchants.
Okay. That's good.
Doesn't suck.
The total U.S. SMB marketplace, for perspective, is, the Small Business Administration says about 23 million, but a lot of those are kind of single office, home operator type of things. I mean, businesses that are addressable, that advertise and have storefronts, is closer to about 10 to 15.
Yeah.
So if you mentioned you have 8.
9.
9, great. So I mean, that's very good penetration. Yes. And that's one of the challenges and one of the humps and points of, it's a barrier to all of these standards.
Right.
So
that's right.
Now, so we talked about Square briefly, and that reminds me that, I think that it was more of a concept, and you guys have come up with, a concept video and some things that are more about making it easier for merchants to accept payments.
Yes.
And you can almost compare it to Square's iPad app, the Square Register, where it's kind of something that you can use as a replacement for a cash register, organize all your inventory, accept payments, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Tell us about that vision. Or as much as you can that has been made public already.
Right. So I guess if you talk about it in terms of, large merchants and SMB segments, I think there's got to be a solution for every one of them again.
Yeah.
So, for LMs, it's easier to go sort of POS and do a lot more integration. For SMBs, it's a bit different. So there's got to be some solutions there. And again, as much as I can say is we're working on making sure all are from the long tail, actually, it's where bulk of the money is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So we have
fragmented marketplace.
Yes, we have to make sure that those merchants are serviced well.
So let's talk about, more to this topic of the closed loop.
Yeah.
The fact that PayPal can be present, throughout the purchase funnel, or at least at that final step, and then with a lot of eBay's other assets that we talked about. What is the goal here? Not only to give the advertisers analytics or the merchant analytics, but also to kind of, a feedback loop of improving future campaigns or where you place your chips based on past data.
Right. So actually, that's one of the more interesting things that I'm working on. Really is, I would call it beyond closing the loop, because sure, you close a loop and you're, hey, we have proof that people spent money.
Right.
But I do think it's a lot beyond that, because you want them to come back,
right,
have a better experience. What is the value propositions to make me go back to your store and spend again, right? And a lot of times going sort of online, offline, making sure those multi-channels of seamless experiences become very, very important. Mm-hmm. So the thing that as you know, one of the challenges that I'm sort of kind of leading for PayPal is the data science piece.
Okay.
So what is that? Well, everyone's talking about big data and lots of stuff, and you know, of course, we have a lot of data, right? And if you think about it, it's one of the most valuable data you could think about in terms of closing the loop.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, like, exactly where the money's spent,
sure,
and who spent it and how. And of course, we're protecting, just making sure that in terms of privacy, we protect it, build a castle, but build a moat around it, make sure those are, it's all sort of trusted from both our consumers and merchants, of course. And you know, there are many, many ways to sort of go around that. We're making sure that we can scrub, and you know, privacy is a big thing.
Of course it is.
Of course. So just want to make sure everyone's feeling.
That's a whole different discussion.
Yes, it is.
Now, does this involve providing tools for merchants in terms of this kind of predictive modeling, for lack of a better term?
Yep.
Not just with what someone bought from them over the last 30 days, but all of the data across your network.
Yes.
Tools for them to basically be more effective in advertising, or you know, just their operations, the way they're setting up their stores,
right,
optimization of design, and you know, all that stuff.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you know, you can think about, you know, searches for Google as transactions for our PayPal.
Yep.
I mean, it's really sort of the data and the analytics, and ultimately the predictive analytics that we can leverage to help the merchants as well as the consumers. So in terms of like the value proposition, really, it's not only about retention, but it's going beyond that. Like, how do we get in new customers, of course, but how do we also have better experiences so that people come more and spend and buy through PayPal? So in terms of merchants' value proposition, we're saying that, you know, it's not just sort of, you know, you're paying for transactions to it. It's beyond that. It's a marketing opportunity for you, right? So anytime we have all this data that we can really leverage to help your consumers, we will also provide tools and capabilities such that you can do a lot more. Yeah. And you know, I love Amazon. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I do actually. I think that they are one of the best breeds in terms of merchandising. You know, they rock.
I agree.
Right.
So there's so much they're doing right.
Yeah.
They also fall into Kara Swisher's quote the other day. I'm not sure if you were here on Monday, but one of the companies that is currently run by the founder, where the founder's vision is still present. Yeah. And you look at some companies that have that in place. You have Google. Until recently, you had Apple. You have Facebook. It's just kind of another angle on that success story. Right. I have a few Twitter questions coming in. By the way, I forgot to mention earlier, we've been saying it for the last few days, but in case you weren't here, ILMQ or hash ILMQ, ILM West Q is the hashtag to ask questions. This is just a simple one, just point of clarification. The 9 million merchants you mentioned, is that global?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's global. I was actually likening that to a U.S. figure, so that was my mistake.
There's 190 markets and 25 different currencies. That's like, wow. That's fantastic. I don't know. I don't know how we do it.
Okay. Here's a question that is basically just a general payments question. Okay. I'm not sure if this is something that you'd like to jump on, but how will NFC affect card brands like Visa or MasterCard? And if that's not something you want to answer specifically, I would broaden it to say, you know, what's your view of the credit card companies and how they play in this whole ecosystem? Yeah,
I mean, I feel like we're up against a lot of giants. You know, we're going to be, you know, head-to-head with Google. There's Visa, MasterCard, Amex. Mm-hmm. And on the e-commerce side, there's, you know, Amazon. I mean, these are huge, like amazing companies. I mean, on the social side, there's Facebook. It's like,
you know. Now, is there the sense that, you know, to the NFC question and the other standards, that they'll actually benefit from that, because a lot of, you know, NFC actually uses Visa and MasterCard. Mm-hmm. It's a different front end, more access points, hence higher transaction volume. Is that would you say that's fair to say?
Sure. I mean,
Okay.
again, it's we're kind of Switzerland in terms of how people pay. So if NFC is what critical mass gets to faster, then
Yep.
we'll certainly do that.
I have my doubts, but that's. So these are some kind of other kind of just what's next, future-looking questions. We're about out of time.
Yeah.
We went over PayPal access. And most of these points actually. One thing though, I'll ask you because we have, this is something that involves social, local, and mobile. We haven't really talked about social media integration. Yeah. What have you done there in terms of even as simple as Facebook Connect to kind of transactions being kind of fed back into the social graph for more kind of awareness and
Yes. So certainly early stages.
Yep.
But for me personally, I want to go beyond the obvious use cases.
Yep.
I think. And I don't know what that is yet.
Right.
It's like I feel like it's like a tip of my tongue of like there's got to be something that really will help people's lives with commerce, right? And leveraging social for that. And of course, I'm coming from this sort of more scientific bend of can we leverage algorithms or natural language processing to figure out what people are saying about certain brands or so I feel like there are certain use cases that we can start focusing on, see if they are valuable or not, and then start trying to figure out what the solutions are. But
you can hire BIA Kelsey to tell you the answer to that question.
Let's talk.
We'll talk later.
Okay.
But anyway, sorry, I cut you off.
Oh no.
With my shameless pitch.
That's really it. By the way, I'm going to do a plug-in too. If there are any data scientists out there, we're hiring.
Very good.
Please let me know.
Okay.
Come talk to me.
We'll end on that note. Join me in thanking Moke.
Thank you.